Good afternoon and welcome to this episode of Herstory. I hope you all have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Today's episode I'd like to introduce my special guest this week, Mrs. Bushra Iqbal. Bushra was born in the Jhelum district and educated in Pakistan and moved to Glasgow in 1969 soon after she got married. Her professional career started with North Lanarkshire's Education Department, and Bushra holds a Master's in Multicultural Education from Glasgow University, as well as a diploma from the University of Liverpool in Race and Community Relations. Bushra has been developing her career, and at the same time she has been developing her education, both mainstream and her Islamic studies as well. She then started working with the Community Relation Council, which is now known as the West of Scotland Regional Equality Council, also known as WSREC, and became their head of strategy and a policy advisor. She has also been a policy advisor to the Crown Office's Procurator Fiscal's Office, and she's held numerous community roles, more than I can mention, including being a special advisor to the police and the NHS board, as well as representing Lanarkshire schools in council meetings. In 1994, she founded the North Lanarkshire Muslim Women's Alliance, and in 2008, Bushra was awarded an MBE. She has also been invited to the Scottish Parliament to present reflections in 2012. During the 2012 to 2015 period, she also was appointed as an adjudicating panel member for the General Teaching Council of Scotland. Her career has spanned for nearly 50 years, and she's also a mum and she's a grandmum. Her three children are grown up and married, and he still continues to work part-time for the West of Scotland Regional Equality Council as an equality advisor, along with her many other hobbies and activities that she likes to do. So I'd now like to welcome Mrs. Bushra Iqbal. Assalamu alaikum, Auntie Bushra. Lovely to have you on for today's episode. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
You're doing well? You're looking well, mashallah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, welcome to our Herstory series during Women's History Month, actually this month, and thank you for taking part in this conversation and in fact agreeing to share your story with everyone. Your story is a very unique one, simply because you've been in this country for a long time, and you know, you've worked your way through, you've been a mum, you've had a career, and of course so many people, Auntie, know you, but yet they don't know you. You know, they don't know much about your story and your struggles. And I have to say, I'm guilty of this as well. You know, I've known you all my life, you know, since I was born. And I feel that you've covered so much breadth and depth in your job roles, in the community work experience that you've done, as well as looking after your family, gaining further education in all fields, you know, over the last 50 years or so. I just feel my introduction hasn't done you any justice. But today we'll catch a glimpse, just a glimpse of your life and your career journey, inshallah. So what I wanted to do, Auntie, was to start at the very beginning and transport you back to 1969 when you first got married during the middle of your higher education, and you came to the shores of Scotland, to Glasgow, for the first time. And in fact, it was on this very day, wasn't it, 23rd of March?
Absolutely.
So it's been 52 years. So share with me some of your earliest memories and feelings of when you first arrived in Glasgow.
Thank you for inviting me. See, my first impression in arriving in Glasgow, I have to be honest and say that it was a nightmare. When you're coming from an environment, background, where you lived in very big houses, bungalows, your, bathroom attached to your bedroom, and then you arrive in Canmere Street, Bullock Shields. Now, it was very kind of them, my husband's friends, and they asked us to stay with them. Now, this is a black building. It's just a flat, ground floor flat. And there were two brothers living already in that house with their 4 children. Each had 5 or 4 children. So you can well imagine, obviously they were kind, they offered us a room. And we had a room, but it was like as if you moved into for me, it seemed like a honest jail. It was very, very different. Back home, when especially in a military residential area, living there, and I watched English films there. So in my mind, it was totally different image. But here, when I arrived, it was terrible. So we stayed with my husband's friends for 2 days. And then we rented another room. But before we rented, we didn't even check. It was a Ellington toll, on first floor. This house didn't have toilet inside the house, right? No bathroom, of course, no toilet. And we had to use a public bath, which was in, I think, Ellison Street. That's where we used to go for a bath. So, as I say, obviously, it was a big difference, and it was terrible. I mean, I must say, I ended up in a hospital. I used to cry every day, not a single day, honest. It was like some nightmare.
So tell me then, was there so you've now moved into a flat, you're renting somewhere in Eglinton Street. You said there was no indoor bathroom. I think you even told me once that there was no heating. You would have to go to the local petrol station to get the oil, and your husband drew you a map so you could go and get the oil to try and, or the diesel or whatever it was, to try and get the heating on. So I guess very, very difficult time, very, very trying times for yourself and obviously for your husband. What about, your husband? What was he doing? What was his job? How did he support you?
Well, I didn't know what he was doing. So he took his uniform out and wore, and that's when I realized that he's working on buses. And because he had to go to his duty, and that's the reason he asked me to get the oil, because we had just got a paraffin oil heater. And I had to learn, where to bring. Even now, when I drive past, I see that petrol station is still there.
So you're feeling very, very, you said you were crying, you're feeling very down, you're feeling obviously very lonely because you're coming from a big family to, yourself and your husband, now you're in your own flat. Was there a turning point for you when you became positive about staying in Scotland?
I think it was how people were helping each other. That was the first point, which was quite positive, and you saw other people, how they are helping each other and, developing. Also, I was expecting by then, and that was the reason which, when it comes to children, you start thinking about children. Before that, I was all the time thinking, I want to go back. I want to go back. I don't want to stay over here. Everything was so different. And as you say, no family member, no one around you, just the two of you. And even you don't know much about your husband as well. That was another thing which you then discover gradually. So I was quite I didn't want to settle here. I wanted to go back. But then, as I say, when I was expecting with my first daughter, Aisha, it was just a turning point that it's now a child. You know, you have to think about your child.
And then tell me a bit more, Auntie, about, you said people helping one another. Can you explain, what do you mean by that? What kind of help?
Yeah, it was Mrs. Wahid Anwar who invited us to a dinner. And we went there, and there was another man they had invited. His name was Uncle Akram. And it happened to be that we just mentioned that we want to buy a house now. So he said, let's go and see the house then. He only came to know that I came from the same area. He was from Jhelum as well. So we went to see the house, and he asked us if we liked the house, and we said yeah, because a house with bathroom, you know, having bathroom inside, and that was a heaven like. So we told him that we don't have money, you know, because the guy who was selling it, he was also from Pakistan, so he needed money. So he took out £400 from his own pocket, and he gave the, you know, on our behalf. We couldn't believe it. And he said, not to worry, I was £800 for the house. So he said, first you pay him monthly, and then you can pay me. So,
and Auntie, what did it feel like? So you've now got your house, right? And I remember you telling me you were able to get a job, you know, your first job. Tell me about what your first job was like then in this house. You know, you told me it was a very empty house. You had to furnish it. There was just a broken chair and maybe a bed, and that was all there was in it. So tell me about getting your first job in Glasgow then.
Yeah, on top of that, the baby was to come, and we needed obviously to buy stuff for our baby as well. And I couldn't go out because I was expecting. It was last few months, so basically I didn't have any option to go out and work. And then my friend, by then I had become quite friendly with Wahid Anwar. So they had their factory just behind our house. So she said to me, I go there as well. Why don't you come? And it was clothing manufacturing. That's what they were in a business. So I agreed with her, and I went there, and we did some packing and stuff like that. And then when baby was born, Aisha was born, then they gave me industrial machine at home, so I can work from home, because we had a shop downstairs, so it wasn't going to disturb anyone.
So you were able to then work from home and earn some money. And from what I remember you telling me, after this, both you and Uncle Iqbal, your husband, you both lived very frugally, saved up. You both, Uncle took on a part-time job at the factory as well as working in the buses, and obviously the overtime he was doing. So you obviously saved up, and I know that during the late 70s, then so you've now moved to your own a house that you've bought, and then you moved in the late 70s to Coatbridge in North Lanarkshire Council, and your first job there was with the education department. Can you briefly just tell me how you managed to get your next job?
Yeah, because both of us were working, and we managed to pay off our, the whatever we owed. And then the next step was that you have to improve yourself. So mostly, just like any other Asian man, it was the next thing, we bought a shop. And when we bought a shop, we moved to Coatbridge because we bought a shop in April. And it was a brand new house. And it was something which was more or less same to what we were used to. So that was a, again, a time when I started feeling good. By
Okay.
then we had actually my second daughter, Alina, as well.
And so I
So
guess that's you then becoming more and more positive then, you can see that, things are changing.
absolutely,
And,
yeah.
and you went
So,
for your first job. Tell me about when you
yeah.
first
So
started.
what happened then was that a leaflet came through the letterbox, and I was about ELS classes, English as a second language classes, at the local community center. So I went there, and after 2-3 days, there was a girl named Karan, very nice girl. She said to me, she was the tutor, she was the coordinator there. So she asked me if my English wasn't too bad. She said, it is really good. So you could help us to establish more a group in North Lanarkshire area, which were about at that time quite a few divisional centers. So that's when they started paying me as well.
Right. So you've now managed to get your first job. They pay you because your English is, you're obviously able to understand English, although I'm sure the dialect would have been a little bit tricky. But then, so from what I remember you telling me then that you managed to enroll yourself in your local college along with doing this particular job. And in the late 80s then, you're working away, and then in the late 80s you decide, right, I'm going to go. So this is along with the family, having the family as well. You decide that you're going to go to Glasgow University evening classes, and then eventually you manage to gain your Masters of Education degree in Multicultural Education. What motivated you to, and I know that you also had you gained your diploma a little bit later on, and you did other Islamic studies. What is it, Auntie, that motivated you to study further? Because it looks to me as though you have a lot on your plate already.
Yeah, the motivation was the quench for education. Because even from Pakistan, I agreed, got married because I wanted to continue my education. And I was told that I could do that because initially my husband came for education as well, but he started working here. So in a way, that was still there continuously. I was waiting for the opportunity whenever I get opportunity. When we moved in Coatbridge, my two daughters, they started this school by then. And the little one especially, she started a school, and I passed my driving test as well. So that's when I thought I should go to college. While they go to school, I go to college, and that was Coatbridge College. I did my SNC there. And after that, I felt that I need to now do some courses, short courses. So it was always like sort of part-time. So as you say, I was working, but I was also enrolling into different type of, the courses, short courses.
Short courses, yeah.
So that's when I came to know about multicultural education. I had no clue before that, but at college, it was a modern study that I really liked that subject, and that's the reason perhaps then I took on this a multicultural education.
And I guess then, so soon after that, then you started working for Community Relations Council, which eventually became the West of Scotland Regional Council, WSREC. And I know that you then also went on to do your diploma at Liverpool University. Now, Liverpool's quite far. And I know that you shared with me that you used to take your younger son, Arif, with you. And, for the weekend, while you were doing your course, somebody from your work would be looking after him. So it's a lot to juggle and, a lot to struggle and juggle, I think. But at the same time, I remember you telling me that you helped your husband at the shop. Uncle Iqbal, you managed the house, you taught your children Urdu, for example, for their GCSE Urdu exams, and this is all while you were studying and working. So can you share your sort of top 3 tips for balancing your life with, having having a family life and a career? What would you say are the top 3 tips for our viewers?
I would say that don't underestimate yourself. We, the human being, have been given a lot of potential, which we never even explore, and they go wasted. So, I mean, I was keeping balance is another thing, which is very, very important. You have to have your priority right. I give you the example. When I was doing a course at the Glasgow University, of course, it was a lot of work to do at home. And I used to do my study, reading material, and preparing my assignments and everything. However, during the day, you can't do it because you've got children, you've got a work and everything. So it was only in the evenings you have to do. So my husband, when he came back from his work, I would offer him his dinner, everything. And then afterward, I would just start doing my, the study. And he didn't like that. Because after whole day, he's working. And he comes home and I just serve him food and then go. And that wasn't something which was right. So what I used to do, I would then sit with him, just watch those boring, old songs.
Yeah.
That's what he liked, he really liked the old songs. So I would sit there just to please him, that I am with him. So that's the way, I mean, it would have been no use to me, that degree, if if my marriage was going to be in trouble, and then children as well. So you had to keep a balance. And as long as you have a patience and you are, motivated to something, you get there. Gradually, you get there.
So and I guess then you give time to your, I guess you give time to your work, you give time to your family, you give time obviously to your husband coming home from work, dinner, tea, everything that a woman would normally do. But at the same time, so you give everyone's right of time to them. And then in the evening, you told me that you would sit down on the dining table and get your work done. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Well, actually, I would wait till my husband sleeps. Right. Then I come downstairs.
Right, and then do your work. That's amazing. And I know that this particular diploma that you completed on race and community relations, this helped you to gain the skills that you needed, that you required for your work. Yeah. To challenge superiors, challenge managers, especially within the sort of public, private, and the voluntary sectors. And I think very soon after you became the head of strategy and policy development at WSREC. And soon after that, you then represented people that were discriminated at work. So tell me how you got involved in employment tribunals, for example. And is there a particular case that you remember?
You see, my diploma in race and community relation was a professional training, right? Mm-hmm. And I was Commission for Racial Equality. They enabled us in a way. It was excellent training, that they provided us. So we could challenge the public sector organizations. We can't challenge it now, but at that time within the law, we were able to challenge the public sector organization. And basically they did, there were modules, different modules, and it was tribunal, how you present case, discrimination, employment cases in tribunals. And at the same time, how you would help support the civil cases as well, for the court cases. So we were given all that training. And at the same time, there's strategic planning as well, because you have to challenge the public sector policies and strategies. So you have to have that sort of understanding. So you have a level playing field.
Right, okay.
You can challenge them. So that's where basically after this diploma course, we were to put into practice. And I started doing the casework and representing cases at the employment tribunal. Many cases, but one case which was the highlight for me, that was an Irish girl who worked with Ministry of Defense. And she was contracted out from a company to Ministry of Defense. And as soon they came to know she is from Irish background, and they just sacked her. In fact, they were quite, they treated her badly. And she went to our union and they said, we can't do anything. And then she came to us and I helped her to take the case to the tribunal and presented her. And you know what? At that time, she got a 27,000 compensation.
Right, because you're obviously helping her with this case and you obviously helped her to win the case then. So Auntie, tell me then, and that's amazing, that's quite a lot of work put into that. Tell me, how did you feel then with the outcome of this particular tribunal, or even just with the outcome of helping other people? What did you feel like?
Honest, it's I can't even tell you the feeling. You feel, yes, someone who feels they are big. And of course, the organizations are big. And you have challenged them, and they have changed their practice due to your challenge. And that is a feeling of success, a feeling of, although someone else won it, but you feel as if you did.
So you felt almost empowered then, I guess, for winning the case.
Absolutely. It's just that, there are two things there. Number one, when you help the victim, you empower them. Many people just give up. They don't come forward. But I thought that's something which, you are empowering others as well.
Other people. So yeah, I mean that in itself would have been something that's makes you feel you've done something positive. You're feeling good about yourself. And then of course I know that, Auntie, during the sort of 1990s, in fact I would say during throughout your whole career, you've always volunteered for so many organizations. You've been on several primary and secondary school boards. You've also represented Lanarkshire primary school sector, for which you were selected by various parents on school committees, and also you've been involved in education group meetings. So you've obviously done a lot of volunteering, lots and lots of different types of work experience. I know that also you were a special advisor to Strathclyde Police and the Lanarkshire Health Board, the NHS board as well. What did some of these roles, just very briefly, what did it involve for you? Because you're working as well, you've got a family. So what did these kind of roles involve for you, and why was volunteering important for you? Why, not just volunteering, but being part of these boards and committees, why was that important for you?
As you say, when you are empowered, then you feel good that I'm going to raise the point for others, those who can't raise for themselves. So you become like not just for yourself, but you are thinking about other people, right? So for that reason, and I know how difficult it was. If you ask my son, Arif, he'll tell you his nightmares. because I would take him with me sometime in these meetings, and you would say it's going to be only 1 hour. And then it ends up, 2-3 hours. And to him, it was 1 year. Once he said to me, you said one hour, and it was like 1 year, Yeah, absolutely. It becomes addiction, I can tell you, because you feel so good. See, when you earn money and you're doing your job, that's very different from your, volunteer work. And also volunteer work gives you, it empowers you more, because you discover yourself that, what was it? What's the motivation here? Why I'm going there? And you develop your character, your personality, it becomes different.
So I guess from what you're telling me, there's a lot of self-sacrifice, giving your time, giving your, even to the point where your children are attending, whether it's your university courses or your meetings, they're coming with you. So it's a lot of time on their behalf as well. And I'm sure they would have learned something, or I'm sure they would have appreciated it. But I did also know that other than, all the work involvement, I mean, it's too much to even cover in this short interview, that, you obviously developed your Islamic education, you developed yourself in your studies. And in 1994, you became the founder of the North Lanarkshire Women's Alliance, Women and Family Alliance, sorry. And this I believe you told me, was set up in order to create a safe space for isolated women and children, to kind of bring them together in North Lanarkshire to help teach them about Islam. And also the really important thing is your vision was to help them to integrate better into Scottish society. Tell me, how did this group start, and what kind of work is this group involved in?
As you say that my quench for knowledge, it wasn't just for the worldly knowledge, but at the same time, the Quran, I wanted to learn and implement in my life, because I knew if I don't do it, then how I'm going to pass on to my children. So it became, again, although you look at your children's, future, but at the same time you are not just the, the material goods. It's more than that. And realizing your responsibility. And you belong to a culture, you belong to a specific religion as well, which you have to make sure that you retain it. And then when you have accountability as well to God Almighty, you have to play your role, which is a sort of, because you know how to set a project. So it was initially for women. I asked Badi Salma, and she was, and also Mrs. Shah. Both of them started women's Quran lessons here. Then we arranged for children as well, because children needed to learn Arabic, and so we started that. So from there, it developed actually that our members, they learned the digital skill as well. The organization actually developed, it wasn't just, as I say, that wherever you are, you have to make sure that the resources you've got around you, you make positive use of those, and not for only your benefit, but for everyone else. If you realize that other people worked hard and you are benefiting from that, so you have to contribute as well. You see,
And what other activities? So you said, you touched there that digital activities. I know
yeah,
that there's a new Muslims group as well that comes. And I think you mentioned to me something about getting women involved in some civic participation. So getting them onto boards.
we, as I say, we developed to the level that we were holding conferences, and then we held one conference, and the outcome of that conference was some Scottish Christian women, they showed interest, and we then set up a new group, which was Muslim and Christian women's group, Abrahamic Roots group. At the same time, we had few new Muslim who wanted to learn, and we started classes for them as well. Later on, we did a partnership with Adjudicating Mosque, and at the moment, obviously, this is a very big group, and in partnership with the Faces, we are running this project. It's only providing them the friendship and support.
So I know that, Auntie, you're in 2008, you were awarded an MBE for your good community relations, you know, in the west of Scotland as well, and obviously all your community work. And in 2012, you were invited to the Scottish Parliament to present reflections. What did you feel during these times? You know, when you found out, first of all, you got your MBE, and then obviously you get this lovely invite. What kind of emotions did you have? What was it like for you?
See, when I got my MBE, a letter came from Prime Minister, and I'm just saying, what's this all about? Believe you me, that till this day, I don't know who nominated me.
Okay.
So I was okay. I was like self-honest. I was a little bit worried that whatever I did, I want to please God Almighty. I don't want any reward from this world. However, later on, I was invited by House of Lords. They invited us. And what they were saying was that you must use your title. And that's when I started using my title.
Lovely.
You know, I never ever did. As far as the Scottish Parliament is concerned, I felt quite good, because what I contributed over there, it was about the leadership and their accountability. And that message was quite strong, that no matter when you become leader, you remember that you are going to be accountable to God Almighty. Yeah.
And so after this, so after you've been invited to Scottish Parliament, you then go on for another 3 years after that, in 2012 to 2015, you are selected to be an adjudicating panel member for the General Teaching Council for Scotland. How did that come about? And, you know, what did this role involve? If you could explain to the viewers what this role is.
Yeah, remember I was working part-time with WSREC as well. So there is so many opportunity out there for public appointments. So this opportunity came up. And at that time, I was thinking a project in Pakistan as well.
Okay.
Education for, you know, over there. I've got a project in Pakistan as well, by the way. So I thought it will be quite good to get some more experience, right? Because it was to do with education and policies and how they monitor and everything. So I felt it will be quite good for me. So I applied for, and as I say, it was a public appointment, and I was selected as a adjudicating member.
Right.
And the sort of work it involved, it was exactly the same as any other court. You know, there will be lawyers there, and, you know, you would, all those processes, what goes on in court. I think why I was selected, because my involvement within the education, I was on a board, a high school board member, and, with all of that experience and my court work experience as well. So I was selected, which was really a very privileged sort of opportunity. And yeah, our role was, it would be a panel of about four people and one lawyer. And we were as a judge, whatever, obviously at the end you have to decide whether it is a teacher and she will be struck out, for forever or for a few years. If it is a local authority, how are you going to punish them on their policies, procedures? They would have to correct them. And if it is parents, then of course you have to make sure that parents are getting a standard education for their children.
Yeah, so it looks like there's quite a heavy responsibility, of course, with this job, just like all the other positions that you've held as well. I mean, you were policy advisor to the Procurator Fiscal's office. So I guess all these little experiences have built up almost like stepping stones to different kinds of jobs for you. I mean, I've known you, Auntie, for so long, and one thing I do know is that you have your hands and feet in absolutely everything. You keep yourself busy at all times. And of course, after your husband, Uncle Iqbal, passed away a few years ago, you continued to keep yourself busy. You were in, I know that you were involved in, I mean, there's so much stuff you were involved in, but you know, so many different diverse roles and projects. You were involved in the Syrian Families Resettlement Programme in Scotland. You've been out to the camps, to see the Syrian refugees in Lebanon. You do a lot of charity work that way as well. And in fact, even during lockdown itself, you're doing so much. So just wanted to focus a little bit on this, that you're still working part-time with the West of Scotland Regional Equality Council. And at the same time, you've got your Pakistan project that you briefly mentioned there. You're teaching women in Pakistan Islamic studies. And so you're doing all this through Zoom. You're doing all this through computer. Tell me about your work, actually, just very briefly, as an equality advisor where you are, and also what else have you been up to during lockdown? How have you kept yourself busy?
See, when my husband was ill, so the work I was doing was very, very demanding. And I had another opportunity actually to progress myself, because the career progression becomes like, for everyone, that becomes sometimes priority. But because my priority was to keep the balance, and he was not well, so he needed more help. And that's when I asked for, give me, maybe if I could take on a project which is not going to be as demanding. Also with the policies and strategy work with public sector, you don't see the result immediately. I wanted to see the result. Okay, so that's where then the project that I'm working right now is for minority ethnic women, and to just build their capacity, empower them. So they get involved in various public sector platforms like board and the committees, and so just to prepare them for that and then arrange with public sector. So I'm so happy that I see so much change, even obviously quite recently in Lanarkshire area. 9 community boards have been set up. So through all of this work, I have managed to send in each area our own women to minority women to represent their community. Right. So likes of that, there is a lot a lot of then satisfaction you get, you can see the result then there as well.
So I guess
your question was too big. I forgot now.
No. So the other part was, so that's your work as a quality advisor. The other part was, what else have you been doing during lockdown to keep yourself busy? There was a couple of things you mentioned to me.
Oh, yeah. See, the thing is, again, unless you develop yourself, you're not going to be helping others. Now, that's most important thing.
Right.
And IT, because in WSREC office, we've got a team of, the IT expert there. So there was no problem. The work was being done for me, mostly. So then we had to operate from home. And this also for our ladies group, Muslim Women Alliance group, we had to continue our classes, Quran classes. And it was so important that I was master now of I had to be master of the digital system.
Okay.
And the first few months, actually, I spent mostly on learning myself, establishing the platforms. And then we continued our Quran class right away. In fact, at the beginning, can you believe it? We were doing it on WhatsApp, taking only 4 people, at a time.
Wow.
And you can well imagine when you got 40, 50 people, women.
Quite a lot, even, yes.
So that was the way of, then I had to help the other women as well with this, which alhamdulillah, they learned very quick. And so those classes are going. Apart from that, then I started myself as a hobby, calligraphy. And also because I'm teaching at the moment, the Quran summary, each surah's summary. So when you summarize a surah, then you could make it much, much easier for children as well.
Right.
So they understand, on their level, like 5 years old, 4 years old, 10 years old. So likes of that, direct. Now I'm going to teach those to their mothers, inshallah. And then mothers will cascade to others. And that's what we did with our likes of Tajweed as well. Those who learned, they are now teaching.
I think you also told me you were doing some children's stories.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That now I'm writing children's stories
as well. So you're doing calligraphy, you're doing children's stories, and I know that you are a huge gardener. You love gardening. Your garden looks absolutely amazing with every vegetable you can imagine, because I know I've seen it before. It's in all flowers, and so I have no idea how you managed to fit all this into your time, but alhamdulillah.
But that is a necessity. Yeah, that is a necessity, because when you're doing mental work, you must do some physical work. Yeah. If you don't do physical work, then you can't balance your energy. You can't. And that is a tip which I would suggest, as must.
I think it's an amazing tip, because what you're telling people is obviously, you're telling people what your hobbies are essentially. So this is about, telling people that, it's good to have a hobby. It's important to have a hobby, and why that is, it's a release because you're doing mental work, and then you've got to do something different to, keep yourself active and to do something completely different to the norm, your everyday job. And I want to ask you about what is it that motivates you to do all these different types of roles and work experiences that you do? I know you've kind of slightly touched on it to say, helping others, but it must take up so much of your time and energy. Why do you do so much? Why do you push yourself so much?
Again, obviously, it's the knowledge, the quench of knowledge. And as soon I did most of my, the Islamic study online. Okay. And the skill that I learned from, being a strategist, I realized that the knowledge is in the Quran. That knowledge is in the Quran. If you learn Quran first and then the worldly education you cover. So
Right, okay.
keeping this balance was giving me a lot of satisfaction, and I was feeling good. And also that you come to this world, as I said before, you come to this world. If I give you the example, someone who made a hook to catch a fish, right?
Right.
And then it developed to the level now that you've got all those exciting, the boats, electric boats, and you can just go there and pick up as much fish that we are eating.
Absolutely. So you've progressed then, and so I guess the motivation is to always to better yourself, to self-develop yourself. And I have to say, Auntie, mashallah, from looking at you today, I've just got one or two small questions left, and I'm very conscious of the time now as well. We've got about 7-8 minutes left. Mashallah, you're smiling, you're laughing, and I know today what you're wearing today. You've got tartan dress on, so you're obviously really enjoying Scotland. Because you told me when you first came, you would cry, you wanted to go back, and then you had to have a change of mind of yourself to make yourself more positive. Just show us your arm, Auntie. I want to see what your tartan clothing looks like. I want to show the viewers as well that you're very. Just show your arm, just your arms. If you lift up your arm, you can see your sort of tartan.
Okay.
So what you're wearing just now is a very Scottish stroke Pakistani mix. So that really tells me something about the fact that you enjoy both cultures, you enjoy both being Scotland as well. I wanted to ask you, just very briefly, how do you feel things have changed for you now? What do you feel now inside? I know you're very happy being here. You're settled down now, but what would you say your identity is now?
I feel that it's much better identity than had I been in Pakistan. I feel that I was lucky I got the opportunities here. And alhamdulillah, I'm paying my tax till this day. Yeah, this country. It's not that I'm just taking, I'm giving it as well. You see, so had I been in Pakistan, and when I said it was a nightmare when I came here, thinking that now I feel, how innocent I was, and I'm thankful to God Almighty that I started thinking positively. I thank my children because they were also inspiration for me.
Yeah.
You see, quite often for children, you do things and you regret.
Yeah, I mean, I think just looking at you've actually turned things around for yourself. You've bettered your life, and obviously, like you said, you're still working. I mean, I'm not going to tell people, how old you are, and the fact that, mashallah, you're still working, because you definitely do not look your age. What I wanted to ask you was about, your sort of life experience. You've had a lot of life experience, so just very briefly, in sort of 2-3 minutes, what advice or message would you give to women that are watching our program today, and especially young mothers? But so for both women and for young mothers, what kind of advice? Kind of 4 or 5 points.
Okay, the very first which I realized, and that is the potential we have. Each individual, God Almighty has given us so much potential. We don't use that. You must explore your own potential, and that's most important. The second one, I would say, keep a balance in your life. That's most important. If you don't keep balance, I mean, sometimes I feel, I could have been this, I could have been that, you know, in my career. And even if I were to come, you know, like the work that I'm doing just now, it's just a small project I'm doing, you know, from all those senior positions, but I don't mind at all. This is the thing also, be humble, you know, whatever, see what's going to be the outcome, whatever I'm going to do. Is it something which I'm going to benefit, or is it someone else is going to benefit as well?
I remember you were also saying, yeah, I remember you were also saying that, you know, no job is too small. You know, everything gives you experience onto bigger things. So never think that anything is small. Always
Yeah.
take that opportunity. I remember we were talking about that. Now the time is nearly up, and it's been, I don't know where the hour's gone to. It's passed by so quickly. I've so thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you and having actually your story heard, and for other people to hear it as well, because like I said, you know, you've been in this country now 52 years, and so you've been working for over or nearly 50 years. During that time, you've not stopped. And so this is a real lesson, I think, for us all, because, you know, there are communities that come and live in Scotland even nowadays. You know, they come from other places, they come from other countries. So the fact that Scotland can give you that you can settle down, and it gives you that opportunities, but it's up to you to take them, and never underestimate, you know, just because somebody is from a different background or a different race, you know, you just don't know what someone can achieve. So, Auntie, once again, I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank our guest today, Mrs. Bushra Iqbal, for taking the time out and obviously sharing your very unique and I would say very inspirational story, very fascinating. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And as I say that at every step, Auntie, you've challenged yourself, you've pushed the boundaries to learn more knowledge, you've managed family, career, everything, you're everything, you know, you had a positive attitude to prioritize what was important for you. You've used your time wisely. You know, you think that all in terms of volunteering, everything is like a small step towards something bigger. And I think during this whole series, the Herstory series, we've heard amazing stories from South Asian women in Scotland that have broken the mold and overcome many challenges to become incredible role models. And of course, you're one of them. You know, you're a true example of a global citizen. So I hope this is highlighted to everybody, the determination, and that through hard work and determination you can choose to challenge yourself. You know, I hope you feel inspired to get involved in something, whether it's big or small, even if it's just something to better yourself, or, you know, volunteering, or your children's school boards, whatever it is, try and get out there and do something. So just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of Herstory with Auntie Bushra Iqbal. And you can follow the Colourful Heritage Facebook for other posts, and please like and subscribe to our Colourful Heritage YouTube channel, and where you can catch all of our episodes for the Herstory series.